So this is one more set of practice problems for you to prepare for exam 2, which is going to cover probability, z-test, confidence intervals, and the chi-square test. So let's start with probability. When we're thinking about these questions, we need to figure out which type of question we're being asked so we know which formulas to use. Let's say that we're interested in survival rates of newborn bottlenose dolphins. We know that based on literature review that 75% survive their first year. And we want to know what the probability is that if Dr. Farugurad tags 10 first-year dolphins, 9 of them are going to survive. We're not given a histogram. We're not told the population size of these bottlenose dolphins, and we're given some prior information. So we can then assume that we're going to be using the formula that has x, k, p, and q in it. K being the number of sampling events, x being the events of interest, p being the probability of the event of interest occurring, and q being the probability of all other events occurring. Before we start solving the problem, we need to identify what k, x, p, and q are. So for the number of sampling events, here we're talking about the number of dolphins that Dr. Farugurad has tagged. That's going to be 10. So we can put 10 in here, and we can put 10 into our formula in each of the spots where we have k. Next, what is the event of interest? What are we interested in? We're interested in 9 of those 10 dolphins surviving. So our x is going to be 9. We can fill that in for each of our x's in their respective formula. And then P and Q. P is the probability of the event of interest occurring. In this case, it's first-year bottlenose dolphins surviving. Our information tells us that 75% of them survive. And what this tells us is that Q, which is the probability of all other events occurring, is going to be 25%. The difference between 1, which is the summation of all probabilities, and P. So we can put these values in. P is 0.75, Q is 0.25. And then from here, it's a matter of doing the math. We can make this up easier on ourselves by breaking the formula up into smaller groups. So, first step in our numerator, we have the factorial of 10. For our denominator, we've got 2 different steps. We have the factorial of 9 and the factorial of 10 minus 9. So let's put both of those in here so we can keep track of what we're looking at. For factorial of x, we're looking at the factorial of 9. For the factorial of k minus x, we're looking at the factorial of 10 minus 9. And now we can calculate our respective left side of the equation by taking our numerator and dividing it by our denominator. For the right side of the formula, first thing we're calculating is p to the x, represented here, 0.75 to the 9th power. And then we need to calculate q to the k minus x, 0.25 to the 10 minus 9. So we have 0.25 to the 10 minus 9. We can then take all 3 of those values and multiply them for our probability that 9 of our dolphins are going to survive. So what this tells us is there's a slightly less than 19% likelihood that if previous information tells us that 75% of these dolphins are going to survive, that 90% of those dolphins are going to survive. If you go to the tab where it says probability 1 answer, it walks you through each one of those steps, looking at the respective formulas. Okay, next probability question. Let's say that we're interested in the distance that gray whales migrate annually between their feeding grounds in the Arctic and their mating, birthing, resting grounds in Baja California. They do this every year, but some of these whales travel a little bit further than others. Let's say that there's 25,000 of these whales in the population. And what we're interested in is whales that migrate more than 19,000 kilometers based on our data. So this is our migratory path. And this histogram here represents the data that we have collected. On the left, our y-axis is the frequency of individuals in each group, and on our x-axis is distances, starting with 16,000, going all the way up to 20,000. We're interested in these particular groups, the 19,000 and 19,500 and the 19,500 to the 20,000. In order to solve this problem, we've got two formulas. We have P of x equals f of x over n, and then we have E of x equals n times P of x. Now, in order to solve this, we need to identify what each of the following are. F of x, n, which will then allow us to calculate P of x, and then we need big N, which is our population size, which will then allow us to calculate E of x. So let's start at the top, F of x. What is our frequency of individuals that travel more than 19,000 kilometers? Well, we can look here. For this group, we have 6. For this next group, we have 10. So that's going to be 16. Our n, or sample size, is going to be the total number of individuals we have in our respective groups. So we know that we have 16 for these first two. We then have 10, 10, 16, 18, 15, and 11. We take the summation of those groups, that's going to give us 96. So we can take our formula for P of x, we can put 16 into the numerator, in the denominator, we put 96. We can make this calculation, and again, as a probability, this needs to be between 0 and 1, and what we see is 0.67. What this tells us is that among the whales that we've tracked, we have a 16.7% likelihood of selecting one out of random that's traveled more than 19,000 kilometers. So we have the first part of our formula solved. And for our E of x, we have P of x here. The last step is going to be including n. Not small n, which is our sample size, but big N, which is our population size. We go back to the top and we look. We're told that there are 25,000 whales in our population. So we can put that in for big N. And then it's a matter of doing the math. We take our 25,000, we multiply that times our probability, and that tells us that 4,167 whales are expected to travel more than 19,000 kilometers. If you go to probability to answer, it's going to walk you through those steps. It's going to give you the answer that we're looking for. And finally, for probability, we're going to conduct the z-test. Let's say that we're interested in sea turtles and how many eggs they lay. And assuming we have a normal population, and we know what the population mean is in terms of eggs laid per sea turtle, in the population standard deviation, we can use this test. For our example, population mean is 100 eggs per female sea turtle each time that they make a nest, with a population standard deviation of 24. And what we're interested in is the probability of a turtle laying between 50 and 70 eggs. Now, having this as an interval tells us that we're going to need to calculate two different z-scores. And we could go ahead and do this immediately. But what's recommended is to create a probability distribution plot for ourselves, in which we have the mean in the center of 100, and then to the left, we have our interval of interest. On the left side is 50, on the right side is 70. And this section in blue is what we're interested in calculating using this test. So to start, we need to calculate what the z-score is for 50 and for 70. So we take our value of interest, 50, we subtract the mean, mu, which is 100, and we divide by the population standard deviation, sigma of 24. We do this for each one of our values in the interval. Once we have our z-scores, we then turn to our z-table, with the values inside of the table, the p-values, telling us what the area is under the curve that represent the probability of a particular event occurring. Doesn't matter if we start with z of 50 or z of 70. But what is important for us to note is that negative 2.08 is equivalent to 2.08 for the z-table. Remember, for the normal distribution, it's symmetric on both the left and the right side of the curve. Same with z of 70. Negative 1.25 is equivalent to 1.25. So let's start at 50. So if we're interested in figuring out what the p-value is for 2.08, we go to our first column and we look for 2.0, the first number in front of the decimal place and the first number after the decimal place. So this is the row of interest. And then we look for 0.08 in this first row. We see where 0.08 intersects with 2.0. Again, your z-score is the summation of our value in the first column and the first row. And this gives us a value of 0.9812. Now let's go to 1.25. Again, equivalent to negative 1.25. First column, we find 1.2. That's this row here. We then find 0.05. We see where that intersects with 1.2, and that's going to be 0.8944. Now, these are not the answers. These are telling us areas under the curve. So if we look at these areas under the curve, again, 0.8944 corresponding to a z-score of 70, 0.9812 corresponding to a z-score of 2.08, we can take that first value, 0.8944, this corresponds to negative 1.25. It could be that the value is to the right of negative 1.25 or to the left of negative 1.25. If we're thinking about how big these areas are, and that the total area under the curve is 1, well then 0.8944 must be to the right of negative 1.25, because the area to the left is far less than 50%. If we go to our next z value of 2.08, negative 2.08, and the value from our table of 0.9812, well again, we're looking at, is the value to the left of our z-score or to the right of the z-score? What we know is that, well, 0.9812 is almost 100%. And the value to the left of negative 2.08 is certainly not a large portion of the curve. So that value must be to the right of negative 2.08. Looking for the area in white here, we take 1 and subtract that value from the z-table, giving us 0.0188. So now we know the area to the left of the area of interest, and we know the area to the right of the area of interest. We can then take those values and add them together, and then subtract them from 1, giving us the area that we're looking for, which is 0.0868, telling us that based on a population mean of 100 eggs laid per female sea turtle and a population standard deviation of 24 eggs, that the probability that a sea turtle lays between 50 and 70 eggs is a little under 9%.